Y'all start bringing people up for me. All
I'm about to go back over there and tell everybody it's open.
right.
Brother,
What's going on, sir?
can't call it. What's up with you?
Nah, shit. About to do this interview.
What's up? Congrats on that.
What's good?
This,
What's
this,
pop?
this about to get good.
What is he known for? Never mind. Forget
He's a
it.
big,
No, he already here.
he's a
I'm
big,
here.
he's a big YouTube blogger. He
Oh,
do a lot of good shit, like documentaries and shit about, you know what I'm saying? Shit in the past, like real street shit. You know what I'm saying?
oh,
Like
different.
he did stories about Rayful Edmonds. Like the list goes on, man. Like OG do good ass stories on big folk and and it's facts. Everything he put out.
Oh, that's what's up. I'm gonna have to check it out. The what? His YouTube is Mob Ties.
Uh-huh. Pop-A-Lot.
Yeah, I've been on that.
Yeah, salute. Salute. Appreciate you, Ace. Appreciate y'all for having me too, everybody in the room for tuning in.
Yeah. I
I
appreciate you
appreciate you
for
for
pulling up
coming.
on Polo Gang, man. You always welcome here, bro.
I
Straight
appreciate
up. I've been on your shit, my nigga, since I don't know when. I always get tuned in. So let me ask you, Montage. First of all, I'm gonna start. I'm gonna reset the room. Everybody, hit that greenhouse at the top. Thank you for coming to Polo Gang. Follow me and my moderators. Um, we doing an interview with a known YouTube blogger, Mr. Pop-A-Lot. Hey, the man put out good content, man. One of the best out there to do it, man. My first question, Mr. Pop-A-Lot. Man, like, how do you come up with all this, man? Like your storyline and everything when you be doing these stories, man.
Well, it's crazy because it's different, like with every story. But now that it's kind of, you said you've been tuned in for a while, so I know you was kind of there, maybe like some of the early times because it ain't been a long. But now a lot of the subscribers will like they'll tag me the stories. They'll be like, "Yo, you got to cover," because it's like you said at this point. Even when I started covering it, I even the stories on people like Rayful Edmonds, the internet talk. We already knew everything about them, so a lot of times this I was trying to bring something that maybe these folks wouldn't know about the people, and then it came to a point where it was just so many different stories that I just felt like the public needed to hear after they heard stuff like Boy George or Killer Ben or Ken Do or different guys like Scooter Braun,
Yeah,
Puerto Rican. Like, and
yeah.
especially some of the people that you would hear in the rap music. Branson is another one I can think of because I would hear him. Nut, R.I.P. Nut, King True out of Atlanta.
Uh,
It's just so many, too many to name.
so what was like your most uh out of doing out of doing all these documentaries? Which one you think to you was like touched you the most, and which one was like the most craziest
Wow,
story?
it depends on the level because like it definitely like bring you closer to humanity because I remember one and there's so many I did so don't like don't curse me out if I don't get the names wrong, but I remember I did one on a guy whose last name was Guzman, who happened to be on the first 48, who is just a whole crazy story. And it makes me think of another guy that I did, Jimenez. And it's funny, it seemed like they both Latino, but so I'm gonna start with Jimenez's story. He was a dude from like Chicago, or maybe on the outskirts of Chicago. He ended up getting arrested for murder when he was 14 years old, but he did not commit the murder. So come in time, they found out he didn't commit the murder. He ended up getting the $25 million lawsuit against the county or the city or whoever. I think he was released when he was 20. So when he came out, he ended up using a majority of that money to fund the gang that he was associated with, and he ended up going back to jail as an adult, for a shooting that was on that they did it. They shot a nigga on camera. They was riding around with like ARs or some shit like that, broad daylight, and he didn't shoot the dude, but he was in the passenger seat. So that's definitely one. And another one was a dude where the other guy that I mentioned, Guzman. I ain't at the computer right now, but he was like a troubled teen. It sound like from the beginning. So he was this, and this story's in Texas. The first one was in Chicago. He was a troubled teen, so it's like almost a situation kind of like mine, where I grew up in Brooklyn, but I was just too much for a single moms to handle. They sent me to Miami to go live with my father and like they side of the family for a little while. So it was the same situation like that. But on a visit, his whole family ended up getting killed by a tractor trailer going to visit him wherever he was. He ended up getting a large settlement. And almost the same thing ended up happening with him where he somebody ended up taking him off for a bunch of bands, like 10 bands, bunch of designer shit. I think they stole his like Ford Raptor, and he would end up in Oklahoma from Texas. I want to say Tulsa, if I'm not mistaken. Wild ass Tulsa, and he would end up like kidnapping the dude's brother, killing him. So just it's so so many stories. And boy George, ate a millionaire by 18 of the shit. Is the list would go on and on and on and on.
Yeah. And this dude right here, I heard of him.
Who? Oh,
This,
Frey.
yeah, this Michael Frey. I
Yeah,
posted the link at top so people can get a
yeah,
more. If they don't know, they can tap the link and get more insight of who you are and what you do.
yeah. So it's like you said earlier, like a lot of. So I cover a lot of the stuff that happened now. Like I got one coming up about a teenager. It's like I'm covering a lot of teenagers because these new niggas is wild. I'm covering one from. It seemed like a lot of gang indictments from New York too. I think YPF. A kid named Iquan Warlick, who was like before the pandemic, they say he was like a good student. He was a basketball, football player. He went to a school that I know I'm real familiar with. Abraham, let's say Sebastian Telfair. He got some pros, Lance Stevenson, and he ended up like killing four people on like through the gang. One of them was a girl from Virginia. So that's how that shit got on my radar. But Michael Frey, like you said, was somebody in the past that I thought some people should know about. He died in 1991. A lot is it's kind of hard to just like run right through it, but the short story was he was like an ambassador for DC. So DC got a lot of legendary figures. Once you start talking about Rayful Edmonds, Wayne Perry,
Wayne Perry, exactly.
Eddie Mathis, it's a lot. It's a lot in DC. And he's gonna be one of those people. I kind of talked in that episode a little bit about like the New York DC relationship, or at least how it was when I was coming up, because I knew somebody firsthand that had just come back from hustling in DC, and this was like right on the aftermath of everything happening with Alpo. Alpo went on there and he like did all the foul shit that he did down there, and that kind of like strained the relationship to the point where if you was in DC, you really better not tell them niggas you was from any of the five boroughs. I wouldn't probably say New York in general because they might confuse you with a nigga from the five boroughs. This shit was just that wild. And yeah, he was kind of somebody that kind of almost, I don't want to say started that reputation, because if that was the case, Alpo probably would have never been there in the first place. But he was definitely one of those guys that we own DC niggas only eat here. He kind of famous too. His name was brought up in Rayful Edmonds' trial because he was the one responsible for stopping a really, really probably the most bloody war that they had in DC. Um, when 30 people were killed, just like in a turf war with Rayful Edmonds and like a break off faction of his team. That and I think he called the ceasefire, and he pretty much stopped that. He pretty much stopped that shit for real, for
Now let me ask you, Mr. Pop-A-Lot. Speaking of Alpo, what do you think about his demise?
real.
How he, like, do you think he brought it on himself when he just could have should have stayed in Maine or just moved around and just not come in the hood, going around slapping niggas up for? Cause they got it on IG way before he died. He
Yeah,
run around slapping niggas up in Queens, cause they call him a snitch and making them take pictures with him.
yeah. It's wild. And on top of that, that's not even it. Really, there's a lot of people they just talk about like, oh well, he got killed. He got killed. There was like a lot of reports how saying how he got seen throwing heroin baggies out
Yeah,
uh at a window when he was driving, and a lot of like a lot of well known people I know, they was like, oh, he had the old neighborhood on lock with the shit for real, for real. So if you put two and two together, I guess he got deals, but seemed like he was still out there. So it's hard to say. It's not. He was never a civilian. So I kind of attribute that shit. Charge it to the game. When it's just like a nigga in the game robbing a nigga, or a nigga in the game shorting a nigga, or a nigga in the game get killed trying to serve some niggas, or it just I ain't feel no way one way or the other about it. To be honest, it was surprising. It was surprising that he was out just them hours, really, for real. Because in New York, one of them kind of cities in the nighttime, they got a lot of cities in the nighttime, and not even a lot of cities. Not and they don't even really got to be big cities. Cause I've been to some small ass fucking cities that like a lot of cities in the nighttime don't give a fuck who you is. Shit could happen to you. And he was out there where I call them graveyard hours. And wild shit, 3 in the morning. Like you could be you could be a fucking square, a civilian. You out there, you confused. Your ass can get confused for anything. So I part the only thing that I thought about it surprised me a lot, but far as being shocked or nothing like that, I ain't too shocked because I see that shit so much, almost in regular life, but with covering these stories I cover, man, that shit part of the game. Seeing stories where niggas wait 10 years, ain't no well, you know what they say, ain't no damn expiration date on get back. That shit could be anybody.
facts, big facts. Let me ask you this, OG. Do you think he got too comfortable thinking that I can't on some John Gotti shit? Oh, I can't be touched.
Oh, I think that definitely had a element of it for real, for real. And the times that we going through now only helped that shit because the internet make you think that shit is cool. That shit, the old school, what they call rock you to sleep. He got rocked to sleep by the internet and by all the damn all the fake love. A lot of people don't know and don't realize that, man, the love be fake. The only shit that be real out here is the hate. that that love
Facts.
be
Bankroll Fresh said it best. The streets don't love nobody.
hell no, hell no. So and he should have known that because everybody the streets love Rich Porter and look what he did to it. Like so.
Fast,
Like,
big fast. Did you ever do any? Have you ever did one on what's my boy? His last name Davis, the one that had the guy in the shootout with the police up there back in
I
the day.
I have, and it's funny because I'm getting now. It seems like I'm getting a lot of requests to cover the dude that ended up killing him in jail. A dude by the name of Blue Boy. I want to say his name Luis Rosado or something like that. But I have in the past. Um, I don't know if it's still on my channel if I re-upload it because I had to re-upload a lot of videos maybe like 2 years ago. I went back and re-edited and uploaded some. I'm not even sure if I did, but that you talk about crazy stories, that's another one. That's another crazy story almost for the age
Facts.
from just the whole shit that happened from the shootout to even him going to jail and getting into it with dude. Yeah, but I have covered him um, in the past, really, but I haven't to try to bring some new light and do some different stories because I know I wasn't going to be some of these stories. I know I'm not going to be the first one doing so unless I could kind of bring something new to light. I ain't really one of these dudes that's just going to do a video on the person just to be talking or whatever. Like most of the people on YouTube, they'll just probably watch a video and just repeat what they seen in the same video. I don't kind of really do that. I kind of go on my own research and his story from based on what I seen. It's been told and it's been accurate almost to the point where it deserve a movie. Honestly, surprised 50 Cent ain't working on something like that.
Who is Henry? I'm about to post his link. Henry, what's his name? Holmes, man. His name Henry the Man.
Henry Man. So
Yeah.
he he so how could I guess give a short story to explain them. I want to say he is the first person to really bring crack cocaine to his section of Florida, and that picture right there, that picture is almost kind of like one of the most viral pictures from the drug era. You can't really see it on here, but in that picture, I want to say that it's definitely took. I can't remember exactly when he went to jail, but from my if my memory serves me correct, that's going to be from like the late '80s to the early '90s, and he has like a bundle of money in his hand, like the shit that people are doing
Yeah.
now on the internet,
Yeah.
rappers are doing now with all the like change the match. But you kind of, I think he's like either holding a gun from the first Nintendo that was popular. I can't remember.
Duck
Like I
Hunt.
want to say, yeah, the duck hunt gun. Yeah, so it's kind of almost synonymous with that time because I grew up in that era right around then. So when Nintendo's was that's when Nintendo, I remember seeing part playing Nintendo or going to school, and then that's where you see like crack barrels everywhere. So they really attribute him to the first person that was like the kingpin of. I want to say Jacksonville. I could be wrong because it's so many. A lot of people when they think Florida, we just think Miami, but it's like a couple of people in St. Pete, Jacksonville, Orlando. But I think his was in Jacksonville, and the thing about him, what really made me cover him is he would end up getting arrested again after he would be released from his first big crack arrest, and uh, they were really trying to determine was it an entrapment situation because sometimes you could be so big that the authorities almost assume or know you're gonna go back to the game, and then they lay these certain kind of traps for you where even if you wasn't gonna go back to the game, you could find yourself back in there just based on how sweet they make that shit look. But
Damn. That crack era, man. Buddy right there, man. Holmes like he got over 100 grand in his hand.
uh,
Easy.
yo, I can almost imagine. I know he made at least that because shit. Why? That's one thing I try to explain, especially when I'm covering dudes in the crack era. Why you think it was so much like killing involved with that shit? Because that shit would like it literally when